All right, everyone. Welcome to episode number 12. I am Kareen Mills, your host, and I have Rosa Alejandra here with me. We've been blessed and graced with her time. I'm so excited for all of you to hear her journey because it's very parallel to my journey in terms of growing up with an abusive relationship. I don't necessarily know if you watched your parents like myself. I did watch them do it. I'm not in a abusive relationship, but growing up as a little girl, you kind of absorb everything. Rosa, welcome.
How are you?
I am doing well. I'm so glad we're here today together. And, Rosa and I met in a mastermind group,
Mm-hmm.
and our background in our friendship started online, and it's actually the first time we've met even on the video. So, where are you located at, Rosa?
I am in Fresno, California.
That's
It's in
awesome.
the middle, right in between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I think I've driven by there a lot. I used to live in LA,
Uh-huh.
and I moved to the Northwest because of my husband. He grew up in this area, and when we, decided to get together, because we started a long distance relationship and all that good stuff. But anyways, it's not about me today. It's about you.
Okay.
Tell us about your journey, and I'm really interested in hearing the details about it.
Well, I think I was not necessarily raised in a sense of seeing my parents like an abusive relationship when it came to that. I was raised being abused.
Oh,
Physically punched and kicked and beaten. Um, the last time I was told I should have aborted you, I was already an adult. Like I simply shouldn't have been born because if she would have known I was going to be this stupid, this no good, then she should have just never had me, stuff like that. So, but it's so funny because I tell my story and people are like, oh, and I'm like, that's what made me who I am, actually, you know? There is one thing that I like that actually helped me through it all. When I heard Tony Robbins say, if you're going to hold somebody accountable and blame them for your crap, you also have to thank them because without that crap, you wouldn't have become who you
amen, sister.
so I think a part of my growth and my journey has been not only taking responsibility for myself and the fact that I own my life, but also, giving credit to where credit's due. Without that background, I wouldn't be so passionate about helping women that deal with internal chaos. So yeah.
It's true, and I always tell people your adversities are gifts, right? But you have to have a mindset to see that, because it can put you into depression, and some people, if it's severe adversity, some people kill themselves, and so having a community of people to plug into, and having a mindset of a strong mindset that this is happening for me, not to me. So, because I know it's preparing me for my future, whatever that future looks like. Can you tell us, during that moment in your life or adversity in your life, how old you were when that happened, and who's doing that to you? You don't have to say names. And did you have a community to plug into?
All right, that happened my entire childhood. Who did that to me, unfortunately, was my mother.
Wow.
And our relationship is much better now, thank God. Um, and did I have a community? Absolutely not. Everything I've done in order to come out of my hell or my hole has been on my own in a sense, because I never really, when I teach people or when I help people, when I coach people, I never really speak of God. I let everybody bring their own belief systems and rely on whatever is true to them. But for me, personally speaking, it had to be God. It had to be God. There is no doubt about it. How a child that feels so like not belonging, always being compared, always being rejected, always being told about my physical appearance,
Wow.
everything. How does that child still come up? And not once have I ever really attempted against my persona, but I definitely did. When I went through my teenage years, I went through a phase to where I didn't want to live. I didn't want to live because I wanted to feel loved and I wanted to love something. And I loved something. I loved my mother. I loved my father. I loved everybody. But I felt like nobody loved me back. So I was
Mm.
like, what's the point? I don't get it. I did have a passion since I was young. I had a passion for dance. So my escape was always getting in front of that TV and learning every single choreography from Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. Those were like those were my peeps. That was my circle. And but I remember clearly I found my boyfriend, who's now my son's dad, when I was 15, and I was begging for a child. I would not get pregnant. And I remember him and we went into a church on our knees begging to get pregnant. At that age, I mean, how was
Wow.
my mind? It was like a way of trying to save myself. Like I had to find something that loved me, that I could love unconditionally. And
Wow.
in my head, only a child could do that. Only my own flesh could do that. And so I actually got pregnant at 17 and I gave birth at 18, and now my child is 24.
24. What's your son's name?
Brian?
Brian.
Yes.
Wow. So you said you were begging to be pregnant because it was like you were looking for an escape was what you were trying to
I
do.
was trying to hold on to life. I was trying to find a reason to hold on to life because I didn't want to.
Wow.
I didn't feel like I belonged here. So I was trying to belong, which is one of our key needs as human beings. I was looking to belong, and I didn't know what else to do. So I thought, with the child, I have no choice but to stay. I have to stay, and I have to. If I don't, basically, it's so funny because every time I talk, or the more I talk, the more I realize. Every time I needed something, I had to create it for myself. I could
Wow.
never go and get it. I had to create it for myself. And that was part of me creating my own path to stay here on earth. I had to have a child.
Wow, that is amazing. So throughout that childhood that you had gone through this abuse, how do you think it's impacted you as an adult? Well, when you became an adult, you also became a mom because you gave
Mhm.
birth at 18, right? So you had two life events happen to you when you turned 18. You became
Mhm.
a mother and you also became an legally, well, can't drink, but legally you could sign contracts at 18. You became an adult. How did that abuse impact you in transition to not only becoming a mom, but also becoming that adult that now you're independent? You could be independent from unfortunately, your own mother. And this is really unique and very interesting topic because we glorify mothers for the most part
Mhm.
because we're mother hustlers, like even if you don't have a entrepreneurial spirit as a mom, we know at home we hustle,
Yeah.
right? We know that because it's our duties and responsibilities. But I'm very interested in hearing how the impact of all that did it stop at 15 or did it keep going? The abuse part, the physical abuse, or when did that stop?
Goodness, I am really, really opening a can of worms here. Well, that stopped actually because, see, when I was raised, I have a younger sibling. My sister, she's about 6.5 years younger than me. And the if you were to compare the way we were treated, it was completely North and South Pole, completely.
Wow.
And I got used to that, and I was okay with that. I was okay with being the recipient of the punishment, leave my little sister alone. I was used
Wow.
to her being catered to or taken care of by my mother or by me. And one day, it was my duty to get up. This was before I became a mom. It was my duty to get up and fix her, her breakfast and take her to school. We were in Mexico, and I really don't know exactly how it went down. I don't remember. I just know that my sister started crying, so my mother got out of bed, and she actually yelled at my sister and threatened her and said, I don't remember her words, but I just know she said that she was going to beat the shit out of her. And something came over me. Something came over me, and I went to the kitchen because I was in the restroom. I went to the kitchen and I'm like, "You're gonna do what?" And I was 15. We had just gotten to Mexico because we were here for a couple of years. And she's like, "You shut up!" And then boom, it all started. And all I remember is I just closed my eyes and I just punched back. And that was like the worst feeling in the world because
Wow.
the sight in her face was so scared. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And it's so funny because the first thing I did, she came back because I threw her back. She came back and she started going at it, and I was on the ground. She was kicking me. And all I could think of, nothing hurt, Corinne, nothing hurt. All I could think of was like, God, I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I know you said honor your mother and your father. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
And she's going to make me cry. The crazy thing is that stayed with me for a long time. It stayed with me till I was almost 30. I could not get over that.
Wow.
And so that's when the abuse stops, the physical abuse. The mental and, emotional or, the verbal, I should say, that continued. But as I grew up and as I learned self-development and I got introduced into this world, I understood that she did what she could with what she had, and I learned to forgive and all of that stuff. But that abuse did affect me because even though I said I would never do it, I abused my child the exact same way the first 9 years of his life. The same way.
Wow.
And it was the craziest thing to be an spectator while everything is happening. It was such a disconnect in my brain of the traumas that I had to where I was beating my child and something inside me was completely out of my body, looking at what was happening, knowing it was wrong, but I could not stop it. So I didn't know who to run to for help because, I'm not saying that everybody in my family condoned the abuse, but, in our culture, you beat your children, right? I mean, you can't talk back because boom, you get mad. I mean, everything is physical. So I didn't know what to do. And I remember I was, I don't know if this was the change. I really don't know if this was my pivoting point, but I do remember I was working for a furniture store. And this gentleman, older gentleman, came up to me. He's like, you're so energetic, but you have such sad eyes. What is it? And I was like, but I'm a happy person. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, what is it? And the first thing that came out of my mind, out of my mouth was, I just feel like God is mad at me. And this was when I was 20 something years old already. I already had my child. Actually, it was around my son's 8 or 9 year of life. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, when I was such and such age, I hit my mother. And it was still so vivid, right? And he's like, well, what happened? And I kind of told him the backstory. And I said, and I know God said, honor your mother and your father. And I know I'm going to pay for this for the rest of my life. And now I'm doing this to my child. And I feel crazy. I feel like I'm going nuts. And she's like, have you ever opened the Bible? And I said, no. And she's like, well, if you had, then you would know that it also says, parents do not cause the wrath of your children. And when he said that, it was like this water washed over me. And I just found forgiveness. Like God just opened the sky for me and said, it's okay, And I was like, oh my God, maybe I should read that book a little more often because I had so much guilt and so much shame around it. And something like I said, something happened to me to where I decided I'm going to change this. I'm going to break this chain because if I don't break this chain today, my son is going to do the same thing to his children and they're going to do the same thing to their children. And this is just such a generational curse that needs to be broken. So that's why I got into self-development. Yeah.
Wow. The Bible is actually the best personal development book if you understand it. it's really hard to understand. And I remember, because I was raised Catholic, I remember growing up, I'd go to Bible study and I didn't quite get it. And now, I go to church. I don't always go to church every Sunday, but I go pretty good. And it's actually my kids that brought me back to church. Funny how kids are, right? They change you. And I hadn't gone to church since I came to America in 2000. I hadn't gone to church for a very long time. And in 15 years, I was away from church, didn't have any relationship with, whatever I believe in, other than I just believed that I could handle it all on my own, right? And I could be good at life. But when my kids started asking about, God and all that stuff, I didn't really know how to answer it. So I said, but I know where to find the answer. So, I mean, that's kind of how my evolvement with the church has been. But when I started hearing, and I go to a Christian church now, and when I started hearing how they translate the scriptures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds like Tony Robbins, or that sounds like what so-and-so just said on another context, and so someone said that the Bible is actually the best personal development if you can apply it to real life and, put it together and translate it in English, because I think it's really hard to understand for kids.
Yeah.
With all the different, thee and thy and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So you said that you did the same thing to your son until 9. And it's funny because episode number 2 was actually the one that kind of triggered you to come on my podcast. What was it about on that episode? Because you said you kind of disconnected yourself from being a mom. It was your identity, and then now it's kind of disappeared and you haven't talked about it. And then by listening to episode 2, it reconnected you to your motherhood. What was it about it that made you reconnect to this identity that you have?
To be 100% honest, I don't recall, but I do remember that she mentioned something about how, we lose ourselves because we're doing, so many things for our children and other stuff. And it's so funny because that's what I talk about now when I teach my clients or when I coach them. It's like, it's all about you, reconnected yourself. And I think, so listening to it just made me realize that my niche is women around my age that have lost their identity. So, and I think the reason why I disconnected from that part, number one, there's a lot of shame behind it. Number two, yes, there is a lot of conquering around it, but see, what you don't know is that I became a dance. Well, I've always loved to dance, like I told you. So I became a choreographer. So I used to teach dancing, and I would create choreographies everywhere, like Mexico, here, everywhere. And then when I came here, I've always also, once I became a teenager, started having weight issues. So I knew that I had to stay active for the rest of my life, and I feeded to work out, feeded it. So I found something that I fell in love with, which was Zumba, and I got certified, and I became an instructor.
Wow.
Thank God I created an amazing brand here, and people followed me so much so that I was able to open my studio with 150 people on the first day.
Wow.
It was a humongous following, thank God. So what happened here is that I was a mom. I was very present in his schooling. I didn't want a job to tell me when I was allowed to be a mom or not. So I always had to forge my own way because I didn't like working for people. And when I worked for people, it didn't last long because I didn't have other things to do, right? So I start living life. I start changing, and I start, having a better relationship with my child. I have this business. I'm independent. I'm doing things. And the United States sent me the opportunity to become a citizen when my son is around maybe 11. And I'm like, what for? I'm doing the thing. I have the money, I have the business, my son's happy, I'm happy. I don't need nothing from nobody. I don't need the citizenship. I'm good. Again, I went through life, but I don't think I was growing up. I was just
Yeah.
going through life, right? And I didn't really have a guide. And if anybody tried to be my guide, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And so then we get to a second invitation from the United States for me to become a citizen when my son was 17. So I took it. The business was already going well, everything was settled. I'm like, okay, fine, let's do it. Let's swear on the flag, whatever. And, and that's when all hell broke loose. I became a citizen, and then I remembered, holy crap, my son has been in this country all this time, and I have not put in his paperwork.
Wow.
Uh-huh. So I put in his paperwork as a citizen, which all the attorneys promised me that it would be so quick because I was a citizen, so he naturally would become a citizen, blah, blah, blah. And that was so bull. That, I mean, the process is so long. So then his 18th birthday came, and I'm told by several attorneys that if I don't want him to get deported, because now he's an adult, and now his legal status, even though he didn't bring himself to the United States, now his legal status is his responsibility because he's an adult. He can no longer stay here past 18 years of age and 60 days, I believe. No, 90 days.
Oh my gosh.
So around that time, I already was suffering from chronic pain for about 2 years, but I was hustling and hustling because I had a business, I had a child, and I had to push through. I already had a lot of pain in my body because I was teaching about maybe 30 to 35 hours a week, physical dance and fitness
Wow.
classes. So I was really depleted. So by the time this happens, and we make the decision that my son is going to go and wait for his callback or for his appointment or for his interview in Mexico because he has no choice. He has to stay in Mexico to wait for it. When we make that decision and he leaves, my world just collapsed.
Wow.
I felt like I lost my son. At that point, the pain was so acute, and I'm thinking it had to do with emotion as well, to
Mm-hmm.
where I just could no longer perform. So I lost my son, my health, and my studio all at the same time. And
Wow.
and I think that was the biggest disconnect. My son left. He got angry in all his rightful mind. He was absolutely angry. He graduated early just so he wouldn't leave high school undone, but he didn't get to walk with his people, with his friends. So he's sitting over there watching all of this on Facebook, and he's angry at me. He's like, "You took my life away. You took my life away," and I was over here just simmering and victimization and anger and shame and I took his life away and I'm a horrible mother and I'm no good and he doesn't need me and why am I alive? I went back to wondering why the heck I was here.
Wow.
So in order for me to be alive, I had to have him come into the world. The moment I'm separated from him, I completely fall apart and I don't know who
Wow.
I am anymore.
Wow.
So that depression lasted 4 years. 4 years. And that happened 7 years ago. And up to date, I still live in chronic pain. I have not been able to dance again. And we're barely patching up our relationship, me and my son. He's still not back. They dropped his case, so he's not coming back. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's just been a lot to, to survive. But more than anything, I had to find who I was without him and without them, which were the only two things that kept me alive all this time.
I know. You
So,
you have to, like you said on your bio, so you have to find your self-worth all by yourself without those attachment. Because the minute those attachment are removed from you,
who are
you
you?
lose it.
Yes, yes,
Wow. So your son is still in Mexico.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And he said he doesn't want to come back. Sometimes I'll send him a message and he won't respond. Sometimes he'll, out of the blue, send me a message. I don't take that personal. I don't get upset. No, no, not at all. But it just took a lot for me to realize that, okay, you're still alive. Get up, do something with yourself. But at the same time, I couldn't post many things on Facebook that were positive because he would be like, "Oh, you just wanted to get rid of me. Look at you, you're living the life." So
Oh,
I was trapped between wanting to survive again, but feeling guilty for wanting to survive because I
mhm.
had messed up so badly. You know?
Yeah. This is so amazing. I mean, the journey obviously never stops,
Um,
right? And you are just doing it, girl. You got this. It's awesome. You're gonna love my guests, Melina Montelongo, and she actually said something about that little girl in us.
mhm.
When she talks about that, you're probably going to resonate so much about it. Like all these women that I've interviewed has just been so phenomenal, and we have so much to give to the world,
Yeah.
and the world needs to hear all of our voices, and they need to also hear that we can be mom and we can do all sorts of other things too, and we can be hurt and we can forgive, um, and be okay with it, right?
And forgiveness is such a huge thing, especially when you've gone through a lot of stuff or
Hmm.
when you've messed up a lot. Like what allowed me to get fully back into doing for others and to creating my book and to teaching others, because if you notice, I don't like, my niche is not helping moms how to be moms and be entrepreneurs. My niche is you have to find yourself, because if I would have known this at 15 years old, at 15 years of age, I just wouldn't have gone through all of this, but I had to. It was my lesson. It was my lesson so that some blessings could come out of it. But what what is
It,
amazing is the resilience that we are given. And I created, through that resilience, I created something. And it's funny because when I say I created, I really didn't. It was a download straight up from God while I was in front of a mirror with eight women. There is something that I call the mirror method. And I was just going to teach, I was teaching a
uh-huh.
confidence class. And at the end, I was going to teach them a little bit of sensual dancing.
Ah,
And I created that program so that women could reconnect with themselves and understand that they're beautiful regardless of their shape, size, or whatnot, right? And the moment I'm about to teach them and I'm actually placing them in front of the mirror to get ready to start dancing, something inside me just said, shh. And I've heard that shh about 4 times in my life, and I know who that is. And I'm like, okay, I'll shut up. And then he's like, take them back. Get them far away from the mirror, far away from the mirror. And then he starts giving me all these directions, and I start giving all these instructions that have nothing to do with what I wanted to do. And that's where they found that little girl. They were able to connect to that little girl. They were able to see what it is that they had to forget about themselves, because sometimes we're angry not at the world or what they did to us, but we're angry at us and we don't even know it because we don't
mhm,
stop to see to see ourselves for who we are. Because when, like you said, when we stop to realize that everything that happens to us is because we allowed it,
mhm,
you reclaim so much power. I'm
mhm,
like, if I allowed it, that means I have the power to stop it. That
mhm.
means I have the power to turn it around. So that program right there was completely God given that day. It's like I said, it's called the Mirror Method. I believe it's amazing. And
Wow.
yes, and I would absolutely love, actually, if you want, because I want to test that workshop. I want to test it online to see if it works through the computer, to see, because
Oh,
it's
wow.
amazing in person. Like, women have breakthroughs right then and there within those 2 hours, no questions asked. But I want to see how it goes through online. So I would absolutely love it, Corinne, if you could possibly, I'll give you like 20 spots, and you can possibly like, what's it called, raffle one out in every episode
Oh, sweet.
for free, completely free, because I want to test it online. I want to be able to get with those women in a group online to do the mirror method.
Tell us about the mirror method. And I know you've already said a little bit about it as an example for your group,
Mhm.
but tell us what happens just briefly during that session, during that method, and how long does it take?
Well, the mirror method, if we do it online, it can take about a little bit less than an hour, let's say maximum an hour, you actually get to see you for who you are. You get put in front of a mirror. And once you're in front of the mirror, there's no way out. And you're allowed to criticize yourself. You're allowed to acknowledge what's coming through your mind when you look at yourself. So you're able to look at yourself from far away. You're able to look at yourself from close up. You're able to look at yourself straight through your eyes. You can't see anything else because I literally take you to the mirror like right here. Like you can't see anything else because you're like right there. So I even get you acquainted with the lines of your eyes, the color of your eyes, the aura, everything that's in your eyes, and then I get you a little bit past that. And then I take you into a journey inside of you, and there are certain things. I'm not going to give it all away, but there are certain things that you have to look for.
Yeah.
And I know the craziest thing, Corinne, is that I know people are getting there because they get there and my skin starts hurting. Like I'm an empath, so my skin will start hurting. It will start getting hot. My hairs are like sticking out like this. And then I turn around to see who's having that breakthrough. And if we have 8 women, like the last time we had 8 women, about 6 of them were like crying. And they were finding things that they were blown away. And the crazy thing I think that I was blessed with is anything I do to help women, I don't come from a place of this is what you need to do. Read this book because this is going to help you. You're doing this wrong. I don't. I have been given the right questions so that they can ask themselves and then they get their own answers. I'm not here to get answers for them. I'm here to give them the tools and they get their own answers. So I think that's the beauty of what the gift that's been given to me, because even the book that I just wrote is all about you. It has nothing to do with me. I share a little bit here and there about me, but it's all questions about you. So since chapter 1, you're like working on yourself. And I think that's a blessing in itself, to be able to give that to women.
So let's talk about your book, because I was so attracted. Not that it's what I love about being Christian in the Christian church is you can be a human.
Yes.
In the Catholic Church, you have to be almost God and perfect. Like they expect you to be, anyways, you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's changed now, but it's been a while since I've been and I've plugged into that church. But the Christian church that I go to, recognizes that we are humans. Yes, we're an image of God, but we are humans and we have issues, right? Mm-hmm. And when you showed me your title, I just love the title, and I didn't even know the title had a meaning. Right. It's the bitch protocol. It's like from talking about Christian to the bad word, but hey, I'm human too, and I have my days too, and it's such a catchy title. And you shared it with me, but our listeners need to know what the BITCH stand for, and just a really quick synopsis of what the book is all about, because I'm seeing a lot of social proof that a lot of women are actually reading it and loving your book, and such an amazing tribe that you have.
Thank you. No, I have, like I said, I feel completely blessed and grateful because this came about, number one, because it's as real as I am. I am completely imperfect, and because of my upbringing, I've learned to not apologize for it. Because at the end of the day, my upbringing served me to teach me, no matter what you do, somebody's still going to reject you. No matter what you do, somebody's still going to talk crap about you and still going to criticize you and judge you. So why go through life caring? At the end of the day, I do what I do for me because it works for me. If it doesn't work for you, guess what? No big deal, because I'm not doing it for you anyway. So that's my attitude with life. I don't care what you think, because you don't pay my bills, you don't feed me, you don't come and rub my back when it hurts. So quite frankly, I love you, but I don't care, So the bitch protocol came about because especially right now with social media, everybody's so sensitive. Everybody
Yeah.
gets offended about everything because we live in a society where being a victim, it's fun.
Yes.
Victim gets us attention, but it's
Uh-huh.
the wrong attention.
Yep.
So my goal with this book is for you to redirect that victimization into something positive, something productive. So the bitch protocol is actually stands for it's beautiful, intelligent, talented, confident, and happy.
Wow.
A word doesn't have to mean it doesn't have to be a bad word just because everybody said it's a bad word. You make it whatever you want to make it. So, Corinne, if you told me, Rosa, you're such a bitch, I'll be like, thank you, boo. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You have no idea how freaking talented I am, how confident I am. Yes, thank you. And you'll be like, oh, then you're really gonna think I'm a bitch. But I don't care. So, so this is a woman's guide to not giving AF. And again, it's the mentality behind why do we settle for the labels that everybody else wants to put on us? Why
Right?
just because somebody chose to say that's a bad word, because bitch is not even a bad word. It's a female dog. It's not a bad word.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, why do we settle for society's standards? Why do we
Society.
not rise up
Yeah.
above that?
Yeah. Society is sickening. Um, they, and it's changing though with strong women like you and me and the strong women that comes on my podcast. And we're just not putting up with it anymore. And I say that a lot too. We're done putting up with society, and society can shove its thing up its thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes, like I was talking about, I go to some networking, and sometimes I'm just with my kids, and I take my kids wherever I go if I have them.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily the other one, I can leave him at home now. He's big enough to be at home, you know, if I wanted to for a couple hours, not overnight. But you get eyes rolled on you. I mean, everybody's very friendly because I know a lot of people, but there's still a few that you can just feel that energy that they're just like, you shouldn't be bringing your child here. And I had an interview with another gal here, Arya Lighty, who started the Mob Nation, which is mom-owned business. And it's exactly what she founded this organization from, is that she allows mom-owned business when they do their networking to bring their children, because there's just not a platform out there for it.
Right.
So I just love these disruption that we're doing into the world, the societal expectation. We're no longer putting up with it. And if you don't want us, we're going to go create our own. Bye.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know?
And the thing about it is that every woman attacks women. Like there is so many. My goal with not just the book, but with everything that I do is to bring so much awareness to where do you understand that if you want to be a strong woman, it can only happen when you actually are around other strong women, when you actually let all that bull crap about jealousy and insecurities and competition away. I mean, I know that when it comes to business, you have to have a competitive mind, but you don't have to have a male competitive mind. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to be out to get each other. You know what I mean? You can actually collaborate and help each other. We women, we are so unique and so different, which means that if I have, and that's something that I taught in a recent talk, is like if I have three Mary Kay consultants and they're all at each other's throats, why? Get together and do a humongous event. Well, no, but who's going to get the sales? Whoever likes, whoever gets more customers. At the end of the day, it's like you and I, Karine, could be talking about the same thing, but there's going to be people that resonate with you, and there's going to be people that resonate with me.
You have to just be okay that there's, like you said, there's a tribe that will follow you. There's a tribe that won't and may follow a friend of yours. That's okay.
Because at the end of, I think what happens is that we operate under the ego. So as long as we operate under the ego, is we're in business for ourselves. But if
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate goal is to serve our clients, then I don't care if they're getting it from you, as long as they're getting it.
Yes.
Because our mission together is to uplift and break through those mindset
Yes,
everybody
thank
has.
you. It's funny because I do the legal services thing, and it's I always get told, there's other reps here, or and I always say, I've got no competition, right? And they're like, I think some people think I'm this put offish or maybe cocky person about being, I just say I got no competition, and my reasoning behind that is nobody is like me. I'm unique, right?
Exactly.
And that's what makes it the fact that I have no competition. That's what creates the fact. I'm not being cocky. I'm not being like put offish. I'm not being like I'm more special than those people. Therefore, I feel like I have no competition. I just know that nobody is like me. We're all unique in our own ways. And like you said, if people resonate with me, great. Thanks so much. If people resonate with the other reps, by all means, because we have the same mission, is to provide this service
Exactly.
that has the same exact goal, is to protect and empower people. But why do we get so wrapped up about this money thing? And yes, we all have bills to pay, but we get so wrapped up that we lose connection with the human being. It's the connection that it's priceless. It's so worth a lot of money.
And the crazy thing about when we fight for something that wasn't meant for us is that it's not going to last long anyway.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
something that's something that needs to be understood. You can fight with me all you want and compete with me all you want, and you could actually take her, but guess what? She's still going to cheat on you with me because you wanted me to win.
It's
So do we
true.
really want to have this triangle type relationship, or do we want a genuine relationship?
So
So
true.
so when I was teaching, I've always been, like I said, obese, clinically obese, 250 pounds and more. And when I was teaching and I broke through the gyms and I actually started teaching in every gym and everybody wanted a piece of this bullshit, um, I had instructors. I had instructors that were like this, Corinne, coming and
Wow.
like telling me in my face, why? Why do you have so much following if you're so fat? And I'm like, well, honey, because
Wow. Serious?
oh yes, because they were jealous, they were insecure because they were new, they were younger, they were thinner, they were whatever they thought they were, but they were not getting the following that I had. And I'm like, well, this is exactly why. That attitude right there is exactly why they're coming to me and not to you. That's exactly why. It has nothing to do with me being big or small. It's that attitude right there that you're putting out to the world.
Thank you. My friend Ramona, who's going to be on episode 4, and it's so funny, every time now I have a conversation, I talk about my guests, because every little piece of every single one of my guests has been engraved into me.
Of course.
And my friend Ramona, when I was telling her about, as I was writing this book, that I had, some people saying that you should really, number one, English is my second language, and I have grammatical error. You'll see it on my posts sometimes on Facebook and social media and all these other stuff. And she, and there's people that says you should really go take some ESL classes, or you should go take some English as a second language class because of grammatical errors, because there's going to be people that are so particular about that will unfollow you or whatever. And I'm like, they're good. They can unfollow me if they want to. And Ramona kind of clearly said to me, which I had known, but sometimes you get out of this zone that because of what people tell you, and you start believing the people that tells you something, right? Especially when they're near and dear to your heart and close to you. And Ramona says, Corinne, that's okay. That's their demons, not your demon. When people project things to you, it's not because you are worried about it. It's because they're worried about it about themselves. They're just projecting it to you because you're the one that is moving.
Yeah.
Which so resonate with me when you said something about, like you just don't care. This is
No.
exactly why people don't come to you, because of the attitude. I'm so happy that you addressed it that way, because I think I think that a lot of women too that are listening now should learn how to handle those situations and not allow people to put you down.
Yes. And
Because
have you ever noticed, like, for example, if there is this nasty person, right? Have you ever noticed that she might have a wonderful following, but have you ever spoke to anybody in that following? They're as nasty as her. So it's like
yes,
you don't want them to stay away from. Like, be glad that those people are going elsewhere. Be glad that they're not your customers.
yes, thank you. Exactly. So Rosa, we are almost done, and I want to make sure that I ask some of the questions that I always ask.
Of course.
Do you follow a thought leader? And if you do, who is that? And then other than the book that you just wrote, which is phenomenal, what books are you reading or book are you reading right now?
I follow Lisa Nichols. I was a hardcore follower of Tony Robbins, and I have to admit that my heart is very trapped right now in between ever since he put hands on that woman. Um, and every time I think about it, I literally, my stomach just turns, because I would have never expected that of him. But I love his philosophies. I absolutely love the owner of PHP Agency. I don't know if you know who he is. Patrick Vet. His philosophies are amazing, so I'm always on his stuff.
Yeah.
I follow Marie Forleo, definitely John Maxwell. And what was the other question?
Yeah. Patrick Bet David, I follow him too. He's really good. The books that you're reading or book.
Okay, so right now I just got a book. It's called. I'm always looking to see if I'm going to better my business. So this one is called Secrets to Landing Corporate Sponsorships.
Oh,
So
cool.
so that's what I'm reading. And I just got also Napoleon Hill. What is shoot.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yes, Think and Grow Rich for women.
It's awesome book.
So that's the one I'm reading right now, and that's pretty much it because right now I'm trying to translate my book because I'm going to be moving to Mexico in September for my health because I have a lot of health issues. And I'm going to take my book. I'm going to turn it into Spanish and I'm going to take it over there. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. This is going to be a tough question for you because your mom was mean to you. But that doesn't mean that she didn't teach you a lesson, right? So what lesson did you learn from your mother that you have or will pass on to your kids? To your son? Because you only have one, right?
Right. That is an interesting question. Because it's hard for me to see my things or, to see from her point of view. I like to put my points of view on her so that I can ease the punch. I would say just be open to love. Even now as we're grown, just this year we've had conversations on the table, and she's told me she doesn't believe in love.
Wow.
So that
to this day?
Today.
Wow.
To this day. I've told my son all of his life, I love you 5 times a day, So just to be open to love, and thank God I've always been open to love, but to never forget that, that love.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you talked about Tony Robbins and the situation that he was in, and listening to your struggles and your story growing up. I don't know if you know that he also went through the same thing.
Yes.
And I have a friend that's a business coach, and he talks about that little girl in us. He doesn't call it the little girl, but he calls it like your experience when you were little. And sometimes when you are in a situation, who you currently are hasn't always been there, and that past of yours has always been embedded in you deep down, and doesn't come up to the surface very often because you've learned how to control it. And this is how I've kind of dealt with how do I continue liking Tony Robbins and overcome that is, and I'm not making any excuses for him by all means, because I know I'm going to have a lot of women listening to this podcast. But I'm just like going back to this coaching process that my friend goes through called, he's a full potential habits coach. And that sometimes, depending on what the situation is, it will surface and then it comes out like that. As if you are currently in front of your mother, battling your mother. And I wonder if that was where it was coming from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not making excuses for him, but I do know psychologically those things surface. And that's why he probably works on himself all of the time, because they show up once in a while.
Yes.
I don't know about you. It probably shows up for you once in a while.
And the bad thing is that with, we go back to the Spider-Man, verse of with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. The bad thing about Tony is that he is not only a male that put hands on a female, but he is an influencer and he's damn near 7 feet tall. So
he's a big guy.
No matter from what angle you look at it, like he should have had so much more restraint than that, because she really wasn't a threat. I mean, when you look at that video, she wasn't posing a threat. She was speaking her mind. She was speaking her truth, and it kind of like triggered his ego, because that looked like an egotistical move. So and I'm a Tony Robbins lover, so it's like, but I can acknowledge when that looked like an egotistical move. Like he thought she was trying to make him look small in front of his audience.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. So I don't hate him, but I kind of like, I don't say, oh, I love Tony Robbins the way I used to.
Yeah. He's definitely lost some touch with the women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's left us a bad taste in our mouth. So love was a lesson from your mother. If your son was listening to this podcast, what would you tell him?
I would tell him what I've told him 1,000 times. I am so sorry that I wasn't perfect, but that he should never doubt for 1 second my love for him. I would freaking die for him. And if I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't, because the one thing that I can tell you, Corinne, that has come out of this, even though he might still have some resentment, is that he is an independent man living with a roommate, having his own stuff. And the reason why he told me, Mom, I don't want to go back to the United States, is because he told me, if I go back to the United States, you guys will take over my life and I will not be able to be independent.
Wow.
So he has grown tenfold from probably what I would have allowed him to grow here, because I am a control freak and so is my mother. So I don't know that I would do it over and fix it. I really don't. God has a plan and things happen for a reason. And the only thing that sucks is that we got hurt in the process, but nobody died though. Nobody died.
Yeah. We always get hurt, and we're always going to get hurt. Because it is part of, it's part of the process that we have to go through.
Yes.
So at the end of all your journey, you're on your deathbed and your entire life flashes in front of you. You've accomplished everything. You have left no stones unturned, and you killed it in life. You've got everything you've ever wanted, and your son asks you these last question. Mom, what are the top 3 things you're proud of accomplishing as a mother? What would those 3 things be? And you may already have stated some of the answers with the previous question, but
I would say I'm very proud of the fact that I never gave him a bad example. I sacrificed a lot of things to make sure that he had no excuses to say, well, you do it too. So I definitely was very hardcore when it came to that. I was quite inflexible. I hope and pray that he has seen my journey, and I've always been 100% honest with my child. I mean, way too honest, maybe even for his own good. And I hope and pray that my resilience drips off onto him. Not for him to be resilient in his life, but for him to know that he doesn't have to go through life being a victim.
Uh-huh.
You know? He has more power than that. So I pray that I live by example, and I also hope that he will have an entrepreneurial bone. Just because it's hard for me to understand people that like to work for people. But he's definitely an opposite of me. He's a Cancer. He's a lover. He loves family atmospheres. He loves people. I love people when I'm on, like, to help, but after that I'm like, leave me alone, and I'm just, yeah, I'm a total hermit. So I hope that those three things, that I can genuinely say I'm proud of. Unfortunately, if you ask me right now, I still think there is a lot of guilt behind stuff, so I cannot fully say I'm proud of this and I'm proud of that, because the most painful parts still resonate a lot with me.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for that. Now, um, how can our listeners find you
Okay.
on social media?
Yes, yes. So my name is Rosa Alejandra. I don't. That might be hard for some people. It's ROSAALEJANDRA. So that's how I am on Facebook. If you add the word consulting at the end, then you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and my Facebook page as well. It's the same thing for my website, rosaalejandra.consulting.com. And yeah, that's it. If you want a copy of the book, just go to thebitchprotocol.com, and I promise you it's not what you think.
That's great. Well, Rosa, I want to commend you and acknowledge you for all of your hard work and the accomplishments that you've gone through so much. I think every feat that you've won is an accomplishment all on its own. And we're never going to be, it's always going to be part of us. And you're learning how to leverage those to become a better person. That's what I love about how you have turned something so traumatizing into something so much bigger than yourself. And there's definitely a lot of women that's going to be able to, use your counsel because you've gone through so much. And I'm interested in hearing your progress and watching you grow on social media. And I also want to thank you for our friendship. You can build a friendship even though you don't live in the same city.
Oh yeah.
And our friendship is growing. And I just want to thank you for being an awesome human.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we connected. And I totally see you, eye to eye. We're both pretty real, and we both have this heart for service and uplifting other women. So I pray that this collaboration does touch some lives.
Awesome. So to close, what is your definition of mother hustler?
Ooh, you want it in my words or in appropriate words for YouTube or
Rosa's definition.
Rosa's definition? To me, a mother hustler is a badass bitch. Like, you do what you have to do, whether somebody likes it or not. And you just do it. You don't ask for permission, and you don't apologize either. You show up exactly as who you are in hopes that you know who you are. And if you don't, say, Karina, I can help you, don't worry. But but yeah, definitely it's just you being you, and at the same time you teaching your children to be themselves. You live by example.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for gracing us with your time today and for your presence, because, the way that you show up has just been amazing today. And everything that I go through with interviews has always blessed me and just really enriching my own life. And I know it'll enrich a lot of people's lives as we grow this podcast. So I thank you for being part of it.
Congratulations on your podcast. You are doing amazing. I'm looking forward to all the other episodes.
Yes. Thank you, Rosa. Have an awesome day. And thanks for sharing a lot of your journey. I know there's going to be women that are just going to enjoy it.
Thank you for the opportunity, love. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.